Few films capture human tension and moral courage quite like 12 Angry Men. Released in 1957, Sidney Lumet's masterpiece traps 12 jurors in a single suffocating room and asks them, and us, to question our own sense of justice. With nothing but words, glances, and silence, it transforms an ordinary deliberation into one of cinema's most gripping dramas. Yet beyond the sweat-soaked walls of that jury room, the film's creation was just as fascinating. The ensemble cast, many of them stage veterans, brought their own convictions, rivalries, and insecurities to the set. The script's realism came from unexpected sources, and subtle choices in lighting and blocking reshaped how audiences would perceive truth and doubt. Decades later, the film is still studied, quoted, and revered, but few realize how much of its brilliance came from behind the scenes. Inspired by a real jury room standoff. Every great drama starts with a spark of inspiration, and for 12 Angry Men that spark came from real life. Screenwriter Reginald Rose based the story on his own experience serving on a jury in 1954. He found himself deliberating a manslaughter case and was struck by the charge dynamics and moral weight of jury duty. Rose realized that while courtroom dramas were plentiful, few stories explored what happens after the trial behind the closed door of a jury room. That revelation led him to write 12 Angry Men First as a one-hour TV play for CBS's Studio One in 1954. The authenticity of Rose's script, from the diverse personalities clashing over evidence to the very notion of reasonable doubt, owes much to his witnessing a near-hung jury scenario in real life. The tension, prejudices, and persuasion tactics depicted weren't just imagined. They were distilled from an actual jury's heated deliberations. In interviews, Rose admitted that one particularly obstinate juror from his service provided the seed for juror number 3's character, the last holdout for a guilty verdict. The teleplay crackled with realism and moral complexity, precisely because it was born from reality. This true-life origin gives 12 Angry Men an almost documentary-like undercurrent. A reminder that the film's drama is more than entertainment. It's a reflection of real civic duty under pressure. Rose's experience lit the fuse, and soon a wider audience would witness the fireworks when his intimate jury room drama leapt from television to the silver screen, becoming a big screen gamble. Thanks to Marty, bringing 12 Angry Men to the big screen was a risky proposition in the 1950s. A talky, black-and-white jury drama with no action and no female characters was hardly typical Hollywood fare. No major studio initially jumped at the chance to adapt the acclaimed teleplay. It took the passion of Henry Fonda, more on him soon, and writer Reginald Rose themselves to get the film made. They formed their own production company and financed the movie on a shoestring budget of about $350,000. But even with Fonda's star power, distribution was uncertain, until another unlikely hit paved the way. In 1955, Marty also adapted from a TV play became a sleeper film phenomenon, winning the Academy Award for Best Picture. That success caught Hollywood's attention. United Artists, the studio that released Marty, suddenly grew keen on mining television for film material. As one retrospective noted, UA executives became very open to the idea of strip-mining TV dramas for movie scripts, and they snatched up 12 Angry Men when Fonda and Rose came calling. In other words, Marty's triumph made it possible for 12 Angry Men to transition from a one-hour broadcast into a 95-minute feature film. UA agreed to distribute the film, albeit with modest expectations. It was a bold leap of faith, moving a story from the tiny TV screen to cinemas nationwide. But the timing was right. Teleplay's critical success, Fonda's clout, and Hollywood's post-Marty confidence in TV adaptations all converged. Still, as we'll see, the road wasn't easy. The film's initial release stumbled. Yet without that first step from teleplay to feature, 12 Angry Men might have remained a forgotten live TV gem instead of the iconic film we know today. Henry Fonda's first and last foray as a producer. Henry Fonda was already a Hollywood legend by 1957, but 12 Angry Men demanded more from him than his usual leading man duties. Fonda didn't just star as juror number 8. He also co-produced the film, the only time he ever took on a producing role. For Fonda, who had fallen in love with the teleplay's message, stepping up as producer was the only way to get the movie made. However, fans might be surprised to learn how much the role stressed him out. Fonda later confessed that wearing the producer's hat was an unpleasant experience that he never wished to repeat. He disliked dealing with budgets, logistics, and the pressure of overseeing an entire production. In fact, Fonda so hated the process that after 12 Angry Men, he swore off producing for good, saying he'd stick to acting from then on. Director Sidney Lumet offered a famous anecdote illustrating Fonda's discomfort. As producer, Fonda felt obliged to attend the daily film rushes viewing raw footage, something he normally avoided because he loathed watching himself on screen. Lumet recalled that on day 1 of shooting, Fonda dutifully came to the screening room. The very first shot played, and Fonda promptly walked out. He squeezed my neck and said, "It's brilliant," and never came again. Lumet chuckled. It wasn't ego or displeasure. Fonda simply couldn't bear scrutinizing his own performance every day. By entrusting Lumet and editor Carl Lerner with the footage, Fonda freed himself to focus on acting. In the end, although producing gave him ulcers figuratively speaking, Fonda's singular stint as a producer resulted in a film he remained immensely proud of. As Lumet put it, Hank Fonda tried on another hat behind the camera and delivered a classic, then happily tossed that hat away forever. 2 weeks of rehearsal, 19 days of filming, Lumet's stage secret. Before Sidney Lumet ever shouted "action" on 12 Angry Men, he treated the project like a Broadway play. Lumet was a seasoned TV director with a background in theater, and this was his feature directorial debut. Determined to draw out the best performances, he imposed an intense rehearsal schedule on his all-star cast. For 2 full weeks, Lumet locked the 12 actors in a rehearsal room from morning till evening. They ran lines repeatedly, explored every beat of the script, and even rehearsed in sequence to mimic the story's growing tension. Lumet wanted the cast to feel like a real jury, cooped up together, gradually growing irritable and exhausted. By the time cameras rolled, the actors knew the material inside and out, almost like second nature. This theatrical preparation paid off. Once shooting began, the crew didn't have to waste time on performance issues and could concentrate on technical filmmaking. In fact, Lumet's planning was so effective that production wrapped ahead of schedule. The shoot was slated for 20 days, but Lumet finished in just 19 days, remarkable for a first-time film director. The entire movie was shot in a single claustrophobic set, more on that later, which helped speed things along. Lumet employed a clever strategy to handle the changing time of day in the story. The crew lit the jury room in phases: bright daylight, overcast stormlight, and finally, the harsher fluorescent lights when evening comes. They filmed all scenes for each lighting setup together, even if it meant shooting out of script order, to minimize relighting. Thanks to those marathon rehearsals, the actors could jump to any point in the story and hit the correct emotional note, maintaining continuity. In the end, 12 Angry Men was completed in under 3 weeks of filming, 1 day under budget. Lumet's theater-honed discipline proved that preparation indeed is the key. It might also explain why the on-screen performances feel so natural and lived in. The cast really had lived in that jury room long before the cameras ever captured them. Camera tricks and claustrophobia. Visually, 12 Angry Men could have been as flat as the 4 walls of its jury room. But Sidney Lumet and cinematographer Boris Kaufman turned the one-set limitation into an advantage, deploying subtle camera tricks that most viewers only feel subconsciously. Lumet's goal was to make the audience increasingly uncomfortable as tensions mount, to have the very frame itself seem to close in on those 12 Angry Men. To achieve this, they developed a deliberate camera plan that evolves over the film's 3 acts. Lumet later revealed, "I shot the first third of the movie above eye level, shot the second third at eye level, and the last third from below eye level." Early in the film, wide shots and higher angles keep the space relatively open. We see the entire room and all the jurors, as if observing from a distance. But as debates get heated, Lumet gradually lowers the camera height and switches to longer lenses. By the final act, the camera is often positioned looking up from near the table surface, showing jurors looming close up with the ceiling and walls pressing around them. In these later scenes, the ceiling began to appear on film, a ceiling that was never visible initially. The effect is a subconscious tightening of the space. The once spacious room now feels like a trap. Faces fill the frame. Sweat beads glisten more on the sweat soon, and the viewer feels the claustrophobia that the characters are experiencing. None of this was an accident. Kaufman carefully lit and composed shots to accommodate this progression, moving from ensemble compositions to intense individual close-ups. The camera also becomes more mobile. At first, it glides calmly or remains static. Later, it prowls around the table or pivots sharply during confrontations, amplifying the unease. By the time juror number 3 reaches his emotional breakdown, the audience is practically pinned in the corner with him. This use of lenses and angles to make the walls close in is a masterclass in visual storytelling. It's likely you felt the increasing tension on first viewing without knowing why. Now you know the camera itself was quietly turning the screws. Rapid cuts and editing. The camera work wasn't the only technique making 12 Angry Men feel tighter and tenser as it went. The editing played a pivotal role too. In the early going, the film unfolds in relatively long, unbroken takes. We watch a full minute or more as jurors make their initial arguments, the camera often holding steady on wide shots or slow pans. This lulls the audience into a measured pace. But as the 12 men get angrier and more agitated, the cutting rhythm accelerates dramatically. By design, roughly half of all the film's edits occur in the last 20 minutes. Director Lumet and editor Carl Lerner consciously increased the frequency of cuts in parallel with the rising emotional temperature. When conflicts erupt, say, juror number 3's outburst, "I'll kill him," or juror number 10's bigoted rant, the film starts cutting rapidly between reactions, close-ups, and different angles. Our heartbeat quickens with each cut. This is a classic cinematic technique to create urgency, even if viewers don't realize it's happening. Film scholars have noted that the average shot length in 12 Angry Men decreases significantly as it nears the climax. In the beginning, you might have 12 jurors all in frame for a civil discussion. Towards the end, you might get 12 shots in the space of a few sentences, ping-ponging between furious faces. One clever bit of editing comes after the storm passes. As the remaining holdouts grudgingly reconsider their positions, there's a series of quick cuts of each man's troubled face, like a drum roll of doubt setting in. Whether we consciously register it or not, these fast edits jack up our sense of anxiety. Then, once the verdict is finally agreed upon and tensions recede, the cutting slows down again for the denouement, allowing us to exhale. Lumet compared this escalating editing pattern to raising the temperature on a stove. Eventually, it boils over. The next time you watch, pay attention to how often the film cuts in the first half versus the last. It's a textbook example of editing as an invisible storyteller. By the finale, you're on the edge of your seat, largely because the film's pulse, its cuts, has skyrocketed without you even noticing. A stifling set. One of the film's unsung characters is the jury room itself, or more specifically, its oppressive heat. Lumet makes sure we in the audience feel the same stifling summer swelter that's tormenting the jurors. The room has a wall-mounted fan, but at the start, it's notably off. Apparently, the fan doesn't work. As 12 men crowd into that confined space on a humid day, jackets come off, sweat stains bloom, and tempers shorten. The sound design cleverly emphasizes this heat. At first, there's no relief, just the distant city noise and the jurors' own sighs. At one point, they try the fan switch and nothing happens, prompting annoyed laughter. The environment itself is raising everyone's blood pressure. In a cheeky list of cinema's sweatiest movies, Time magazine noted that 12 Angry Men takes place almost entirely within the confines of the steamy jury room, where the wall-mounted fan above the door barely rattles along, and sometimes it is the only sound in the room, a reminder of the sweat-inducing pressure of holding a man's fate in their hands. Indeed, during some heavy silences, for example, after a shocking piece of evidence is debunked, Lumet cuts to the fan squeaking weakly, a metronome of discomfort. Eventually, nature intervenes. A thunderstorm breaks more on that next, cooling the air and, symbolically, the hot-headedness. But before it does, the film practically drips with perspiration. In one famous sequence, juror number 4 E.G. Marshall, the prim, composed stockbroker, insists that he never sweats. As the debate intensifies, a single bead of sweat betrays him, rolling down his forehead at a critical moment, showing that even he can't stay cool under fire. It's an incredibly subtle detail that many miss, but it was deliberate. Lumet was known to increase the sweat on actors as tension ramped up. By the film's climax, shirts are soaked and brows glisten. The oppressive heat is not just background, it's a catalyst for conflict, practically a provocation in its own right. Viewers can practically feel the sticky tables and the stagnant air, and it makes the jurors' desperation all the more palpable. In 12 Angry Men, if you can't take the heat, well, good luck, because there's no kitchen to escape to. A thunderstorm of symbolism. Just when the pressure in that jury room seems about to explode, an outside force gives everyone a breather. A sudden summer thunderstorm. Lumet uses the weather as a masterstroke of symbolism and atmosphere. About 2/3 through the film, dark clouds roll in and rain pounds the windows, startling the jurors and the audience alike. The timing is no coincidence. The storm erupts just as the most obstinate jurors are being confronted with inconvenient truths. The downpour quite literally cools things off. As noted in a Criterion Collection essay, the weather outside changes. The sky darkens, and a thunderous summer shower cools off the city, along with some of the hotheads on the jury. Indeed, once the rain breaks the heat, we see a noticeable shift in the jurors' demeanor, like the enraged juror number 3 and the bigoted juror number 10 begin to lose their bluster. There's a moment of almost comic relief when the useless fan finally sputters to life. The storm has likely dropped the temperature enough, or maybe someone fixed the fuse. The men allow themselves a little smile and breathe easier in the cooler air. Symbolically, the storm represents a cleansing or purifying of the toxic atmosphere. It washes away some of the stubbornness and tension, allowing reason to seep in. Visually, the changing light captured by Boris Kaufman's cinematography marks a transition. The room, previously bathed in hazy sun and shadow, is now dim with rain, then lit by fluorescent lights as evening approaches. This mirrors the narrative transition from fiery confrontation to more sober reflection. One by one, jurors start to change their votes in the post-storm calm. It's as if the furious energy in the room has literally blown over with the wind and rain. By the time the storm passes, the group's anger has largely spent itself. The thunderstorm is a turning point, after which the last barriers to unanimity begin to crumble. Lumet, who often used weather as drama in later films, knew exactly what he was doing. The rain isn't just meteorology, it's metaphor. It cooled the city and the souls in that jury room, setting the stage for cooler heads to finally prevail. Anonymous jurors and the power of no names. One of the most striking and subtle aspects of 12 Angry Men is that you never learn the characters' names, at least not until the final moments, and even then only 2 are exchanged briefly. Throughout the film, the men are identified solely by their juror numbers. This was a conscious choice by Reginald Rose and Sidney Lumet, and it carries significant symbolic weight. The jurors could be anyone. They are meant to represent a cross-section of society, not specific individuals with backstories. Keeping them nameless heightens the universality of the drama. As the Criterion Collection essay observes, they are strangers after all. Even their names are withheld. Once the verdict is delivered, they are unlikely to see one another again. Indeed, in the very last scene after the verdict, only juror number 8, Henry Fonda, and juror number 9, Joseph Sweeney, introduce themselves by name Davis and McCardle, respectively, and it comes as a gentle surprise. By that point, we feel we know these characters deeply, their prejudices, their values, their tempers, and yet we realize we never knew such basic things as what they're called outside that room. This anonymity also strips away social status and preconceptions. Inside the jury room, it doesn't matter if one juror is a wealthy broker and another a working-class painter. The usual formalities like Mr. So-and-so are dropped. Each man's arguments must stand on their own merit, not on personal authority or identity. In a sense, they become archetypes: the leader, the bigot, the slacker, the immigrant, the outsider, etc., etc. Which makes the story play almost like a moral fable about justice and prejudice. Additionally, anonymity emphasizes that the juror's duty is collective and not about individual glory. It also reinforces the film's critique of bias. Notice how juror number 10 spouts ugly generalizations about those people without ever considering actual names or personal stories. He has dehumanized an entire group. Meanwhile, juror number 8's insistence on seeing the defendant as a person rather than a stereotype is what gradually restores humanity to the process. The film pointedly withholds the defendant's name as well. He's just the boy throughout, equating him to the faceless jurors who hold his fate. Only when justice is done, the process working over personalities, do a couple of human names surface, like a reward for seeing each other as individuals at last. By keeping names hidden for 99% of the film, Lumet and Rose ensured that we focus on the content of each man's character, his ideas, biases, reason, and emotion, rather than his label. It's a brilliant narrative technique that many fans may not consciously note on first viewing, but it's central to the story's everyman quality. An un-Hollywood cast, 11 character actors and a star. When you think of classic Hollywood ensembles, you might picture a slew of big-name stars sharing the screen. 12 Angry Men took a very different approach. Aside from Henry Fonda, juror number 8, none of the jurors were traditional A-list leading men. And that was by design. Director Sidney Lumet intentionally filled the jury box with a who's who of New York stage and character actors rather than Hollywood celebrities. As a Criterion essay notes, the movie was shot in New York and, with the exception of its star, Henry Fonda, was cast with actors. An all-star roster of character actors including E.G. Marshall, Ed Begley, Lee J. Cobb, Jack Klugman, and Jack Warden, known, if at all, for their New York stage and television work. This was a significant shift away from the Hollywood studio system's typical casting sensibility. In 1950s Hollywood, you might have expected at least a couple of other marquee names, but here, Fonda is flanked by deeply respected, if lesser-known performers from Broadway and live television dramas. The result was a certain authenticity. These actors looked and felt like ordinary people, not glamorized movie stars. Lee J. Cobb, juror number 3, had a towering intensity. Honed from years on stage, he originated the role of Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman on Broadway. E.G. Marshall, juror number 4, was a steady character actor who exuded intellectual cool. Jack Warden, Jack Klugman, Martin Balsam, Ed Begley, each brought a distinct naturalism to their roles, shaped by the gritty New York theater scene. Many had also appeared in live TV anthology shows like Playhouse 90 and Studio One, meaning they were adept at ensemble work and quick preparation, perfect for Lumet's rehearsal-heavy method. This casting approach lent the film a New York school realism that stood out at the time. It also meant egos were checked at the door. No one tried to grandstand or steal scenes from the star because they were all disciplined team players. Lumet often said he wanted faces with character, lined, lived in, expressive, and he got exactly that. 2 actors had done it all before. While most of the 12 Angry Men cast were new to the material, at least 2 actors on the 1957 jury had literally played their roles before in the original TV version. That's right, juror number 9 and juror number 11 in the film were portrayed by the same actors who portrayed those parts in the 1954 live teleplay 12 Angry Men. Old-timer Joseph Sweeney, who so memorably plays juror number 9. The wise, observant elderly man was in his 70s and had originated the role 3 years earlier on Studio One. Similarly, George Voskovec, who plays juror number 11, the European-born watchmaker, with a strong respect for American justice, reprised his role from the TV production. For fans of the film, this fact is a delightful revelation. It's a bit like discovering 2 of the jurors were time travelers from the story's first incarnation. Sweeney's performance in the teleplay was highly praised, so when it came time to cast the movie, Lumet and Fonda wisely tapped him again, figuring he was juror number 9. His gentle gravitas and the way his character allies with Fonda's juror number 8 early on, he's the first to support a not guilty vote, form a crucial backbone of the ensemble. Voskovec, a Czech-American actor, brought authenticity to juror number 11's immigrant perspective. His slight accent and dignified manner make that character especially sympathetic. Recasting him ensured that nuance wasn't lost. It's interesting to note that Sweeney and Voskovec were the only 2 performers to make the jump from the small screen version, which had a mostly different cast, including Robert Cummings and Francho Tone. Their presence on set likely provided a touchstone. They knew these characters inside out. There's a lovely moment near the end of the film when Sweeney's juror number 9, in admiration, asks Fonda's character for his name, Davis, and then introduces himself as McCardle. That simple exchange, delivered with Sweeney's grandfatherly warmth, carries the weight of someone who's walked this path before, both the character, who has seen much in life, and the actor, who had spoken those very lines in 1954. For Voskovec's part, his juror number 11 delivers a stirring little monologue defending the duty of jurors to seek truth, which lands all the more solidly perhaps because he had practiced it years prior. Most fans of the film have never seen the live 1954 teleplay, which survived as a kinescope, so they naturally assume everything about the film was brand new. If you found these hidden truths as compelling as the film itself, be sure to like this video, subscribe for more classic Hollywood deep dives, and share your thoughts below.